I think you pronounce it Frédéric as it
Yeah.
is,
And
is
then
it?
Frederick, whatever you want.
I'm saying hi, Frédéric, and thanks for taking the time here being with me. We had a very short little chat up front, but we decided there's enough um, there's enough, how do you say this, vibe among us that we can jump right into it. So I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and what you're doing, and then we can start with the topics from the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice being here. Thanks for the opportunity. So my name is Frédéric, as you said. I grew up in Hong Kong, in Southeast Asia, amongst the big towers, manufacturing, everything, stuff like that. Came back to France, went to engineering school, and right after my studies, I joined some friends and we created Phospho, which is an AI company. I call it AI company because we dabbled into different fields when we initially started, but we converged to robotics and are now at the intersection of robotics and AI. So I think we'll talk a bit more about it later.
And I think the good thing about your introduction is not only who you are, what you're doing, but you already really revealed a little bit of something that is very interesting for me. Always trying to cover the upbringing, the environment, the surroundings of founders like you, because sometimes you can see patterns and you see characteristics or you see elements that you see over and over again, and I'm very interested in that. And not too many French founders in the fields of robotic and AI grew up in Hong Kong. So if you're feeling like it, and I would be very curious to hear about it, maybe we can go back in time and you can tell me a little bit more about this, because I think this is quite a unique experience.
Yeah, so I was born in France, and I moved when I was 5. My dad was working in Hong Kong at the time. So yeah, I grew up there, learning English, Chinese. This is probably why you don't hear my French accent. Um, but yeah, I remember being a little kid and going to China, buying cheap clothes, hardware, stuff like that with my parents. Great times. And yeah, I mean, it's a unique environment to grow up in. Lots of stuff to learn, languages, people, very rich culture. Getting back in France was hard at the beginning, but I think coming from a place where, of course, Hong Kong is a big financial center, and you see all these like corporate people around you. I think it kind of gives you a drive and hunger, which might be it, but yeah.
And at what age did you came back when you said you moved to Hong Kong when you were 5?
Yeah, I came back when I was 14.
Mm.
I think, yeah, 9 years.
So that's longer than just like 1, 2 years. My dad worked in,
Yeah.
in Hong Kong, so this is really like I grew up. This is
Yeah. Yeah. At
s-
some point, I had spent more time in Hong Kong than in France.
uh,
Yeah.
and I guess that especially the language part. Have you been to a foreign uh, school education, or is that?
It was a question at the time, but we were only supposed to stay for 2 years. So they said, okay, let's put him in a French school, at the French International School. And yeah, it didn't make sense if we were only going to stay 2 years to put me in a Chinese school or a local. But you still
And
get exposed to still a lot of the environment.
as you said, this is a financial place, but you're also mentioning manufacturing. Can you tell us a bit about this?
Yeah, so the closest city to Hong Kong, when you cross the Chinese border, is Shenzhen. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's an incredible city that's sprouted and just became like a global, um, incredible center for hardware. And you have these gigantic buildings, which maybe are like 6, 7 floors, and on each floor you have different components. So on the first floor you'll have screws, knobs, stuff like that, and then increasingly larger components, and you can find basically anything you want there, from like iPhone chips, CPUs, to GPUs, to whatever you want. So I have a very deep memory, like of me just walking into these gigantic buildings and looking at all these different components and parts and bits, um, which is amazing.
Manufacturing, as you said, is something. I mean, you said this before the podcast, but hardware is hard, right? And uh, especially the last few years, 10 years, 15 years, VCs were looking for software companies, subscription models. This is where all the money got like were put into. And I think this humanoid hide really helped to put the focus back on hardware, put it back on physical components, and not only on humanoids, but only on other parts as well, right? We come to this later on because I still like to stick a little bit with upbringing, education, and as I said, the environment that you grew up with. So that means what kind of influence of parents. My latest guest, for example, he told me that his father was a doctor and his grandfather was a doctor, and even his grandfather's father was a doctor. So becoming an engineer was something that was not on the plan, on the menu, right? So how was that for you?
Yeah, so my dad is an engineer, so kind of grew up in this environment. I was always going to the science museum, not the history museum. um, and yeah, I think my dad was kind of the main inspiration because as a kid, I was building like wooden boats. I was repairing stuff with him, kind of hacking. We built a computer. Yeah, we were going to the hardware shop in China, and yeah, like whenever there was something broken, he would fix it. And if the computer had a bug, he would like scan it. Yeah, if there wasn't enough space on the computer, he would go buy a hard drive and stuff like that, which just makes sense to me now, and that's how I grew up. So very exposed to this environment of building and yeah, dabbing into software and hardware.
Being because this is not yesterday, right? This has been a few years ago when you said that you went to Hong Kong at the age of 5 until you were 14, and your father was an engineer working over there. It must have been quite an experience because, as you said, today I think this is a very international city, Shenzhen. But how is that to be a foreigner, French person, and then going? I mean, for your entire family, how was that for you? And you said that you've been at a French school. Maybe you can dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, to me, it was the best possible experience ever. Um, it taught me so much of people you meet, the languages you learn. You get exposed to a lot of different things that I wouldn't have been exposed to in France. And it's a very international city. Things are changing right now, maybe for the past 5, 6 years. But when I was there, it was a very unique city, and at the intersection of Chinese culture and Western culture, I think there's no place like it in the world. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Having this kind of, as you said, tall buildings around you is, I mean, now you live in Paris, so it's a very international city too, but Paris is, especially if you're in the city center, I mean, it's still one of the most visited cities in all of Europe. Um, it's very old. It's very cultural, rich from a cultural perspective, right? You have so many museums and then you have this high tech. But maybe you can say a little bit about how it was in Hong Kong, because I think, as you said, there's a unique mixture of old and new as well, right?
yeah, absolutely. So Hong Kong is more of a financial center, um, and yeah, I think in both Paris and Hong Kong you have this mixture of very old and like the cultural heritage, but also the big, tall, new buildings that shine. And you can see it in the languages too, right? In Hong Kong, they speak Cantonese and English, the two official languages. And Cantonese have kind of survived and thrived in this Cantonese region. Um, but it's a very old language and it's getting replaced by Mandarin. And same thing for France and Paris, I guess. City's very old, lots of culture, of museums. Um, but at the same time, you have this like constant evolution, and I think you see it also in the AI ecosystem that's being built right now. Um, of course, it's not SF or the States, but I think it might be the second best place to launch an AI company right now. Lots of things happening. The VCs in Europe are still a different breed, but I think lots of positive energy and people building different things. So yeah, very hyped about that.
Thanks for taking the time here. And yeah, then you said that you went back or came back from Hong Kong back to Europe to Paris.
Yeah, to Paris. Yeah, yeah. I was studying there.
And so you said your father is an engineer or was an engineer, and then you're about to become an engineer as well. So you decided to not stay in Asia, or was that being because of
Um,
a family?
yeah, that was mainly because of my family. Everybody moved back to Paris. I tried going back actually 2 years ago. I did an internship at the time, uh, and I mean, it was very different. I still enjoyed it, but it was very different. I guess now I'm
Oh,
more into exploring maybe America or the rest of Europe. I know Asia pretty well, so yeah.
mm. And then he said, "Okay, let's. I would like to become an engineer." And did you have an idea what you want to do right away, or was that something that you needed to test out a little bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely no idea. I knew I wanted to maybe do software. That's an interest I had all my life. I had been building small things, like small web pages, small games, like on my calculator. I was building a snake game, stuff like that. It's just something that I grew up with, always being around computers and learning to build with them and coding. So I knew I wanted to work somewhere in that area, but had no specific idea. Um, I did several internships, which kind of gave me an idea of what I could do, what was interesting to me. Um, and yeah, now I'm building a company, so very different.
But is there something that you would suggest to other people to do to do internships to get an idea what's out there, to
Yeah,
maybe not limiting yourself and getting fresh input and having conversation and exchange and collaboration with people that are maybe outside of the niche that you're used to?
absolutely. Yeah, I think the more hands-on you can be, the better. If it's an internship, great. It means you have kind of a structured, maybe workplace where you can ask questions to your colleagues and develop, yeah, your skills. But if you want to go the solo route, just build stuff. Build a robot, build a website, build an app for whatever. Just keep on building, and yeah, you'll figure out what you want, what you like. Um, and if it's not in the software or the hardware space, maybe you're meant to be an artist, then just paint. Um, I guess doing is the main thing.
Doing is the main thing. Really like it, especially as doing frees you from overthinking, because
Absolutely.
overthinking puts you in a place where you think that you act because you act in simulation, so to speak, but in reality, there's too many options in simulation, right? And you cannot go through all the simulation at the same time, as we are not a computer yet. And hands-on doing is definitely something that frees you from being stuck and gives you momentum. So thanks for sharing that one.
Yeah. And
Sorry.
the other trick there is if you want to get started, just start. If you want to run, just run. You don't need to buy a $2,000 laptop to get started, or I don't know, just start. Yeah,
The the time at university for some people is it can be very hard and very overwhelming, especially you said now software, but I have a lot of people that were really into robotics and hardware early on, mechanical engineering, electric engineering. So there's too many things, right? What should I focus on when I'm in robotics? Is it vision? Is it control? Is it right? There's so many options. How was that for you? Was that something that came naturally, or you were curious, or yeah, how was that for you?
I think I stayed curious. Even in my last year at university, I had a choice exactly as you said between like vision or yeah, many different fields. And it was a big question. I was hesitant, um, but I guess I was comfortable with some areas, and I chose the ones that I wasn't comfortable with.
You
The one
did.
Yeah, I did. So I ended up choosing graphics and computer vision, which was very tough. It was like representations in 3D modeling. So like small triangles to represent spaces and manipulating these objects. And this is something I had no idea how to do. Um, but to me, it was very interesting, exactly because I didn't know what to expect and how this field was done. So I guess staying curious is the big one.
But how do you make it through, right? Because a lot of people are choosing the comfort zone because yeah, I feel comfortable with, right? And I see this with a few of my friends, and without being too judgy here, because it sounds very fast, very judgy. Um, there is a lot of comfort in doing the same things for a longer period of time, and you have the opportunity to gain a lot of deep knowledge, right? If I was talking to someone at Siemens, I was working there for a few years. They have been doing combustions for 25 years. So he was the to-go guy, right? There was no one else who was in that department for 25 years. And versus staying curious and getting out of the comfort zone always means to challenging something that you don't know, so that you can have a wider expertise, but maybe not as deep. And as you said, it's hard. So how did you get through?
You get through. You just do.
Well, what
Um,
helped you? What helped you? What kind of mindset? What kind of not tricks, but what kind of maybe frameworks, or what is something that you would tell somebody who struggled with that?
yeah. I think, especially at school or university, in an environment where you're supposed to learn and it's supposed to be hard. Um, some students have done this course before and they have succeeded. So why not you? How different are you that you're not going to succeed in this? The world was created by people who are not smarter than you and I. Um, like to me, it's just everything's possible, and you just have to, yeah, get through it and put your mind to it.
Mm. I think this is something that comes really from within, and but that before it is within, it needs to come from outside, right? So I think, as you said, if you can do it, or if somebody else did it, I can do it. This needs to be discovered, or this needs to be taught, right? Some parents or some teachers or mentors can do this for you and help you here. Like, look, your brother were able to do it, or you see your brother who is, you know how he behaves normally, and then you said, if this guy can do a PhD, I can do a PhD, right? So if this guy can build it, I know how good he plays soccer, and he sucks at soccer, so but he's able to do this. So like seeing examples, was that something that was around you, or you were surrounded with, or
I guess, yeah. But now that I'm talking with you, I realize that I think one of the big things was sports. I've always been, yeah, I loved running, doing trail in the mountains in Hong Kong, hiking.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I guess running and endurance sport in general was a big one. Um, and challenging yourself in that aspect is also, I think, very important. Um, I think running teaches you a lot about yourself, um, because you're alone with your shoes on and just running. Um, and I guess I'm also a very competitive person, so I've always been challenging myself to like go faster, go longer, um, beat my time, personal
mm.
record. So yeah,
That hones, that carves this kind of mentality that is necessary to become a founder. I think I saw a study somewhere among people who succeed on a very high level in sports. There's a very high percentage that they are like a much higher percentage of people that they build successful businesses, because they have this kind of mindset. And as you said, if you're running and you're on your own, this is what entrepreneurship feels like, right? You're being on your own and you're running all the time for towards your problems, from your problems away. So this is, I think it's a good analogy. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's a good idea to get exposed to. Uh, Now coming back to the things that you do today, and maybe you can share a little bit how this company came together. Were there people from university? How was that for you in the early beginnings?
So the two founders met at so Paul Louis and Pierre Louis, both French, met at an entrepreneurship masters called XHEC in Paris.
Hmm.
So they got together, created the company, and I knew Pierre Louis from when we were in high school together. At the time, we were building stuff together, and we met. It's actually quite a fun story. He was trying to create a bot farm for Instagram. So
Okay.
you could buy likes from him, and he would send 10, 100 bots to like your pictures.
Mm-mm.
And he was trying to create that. Um, and I had a similar struggle because at the time, I had created an Instagram account that exploded. It still exists today. It's called Formulas for Your Comfort. Formulas underscore your for underscore your underscore comfort. And it had like 70,000 followers. And I was posting science topics, so like equations, and commenting about the equation and explaining what it's used for, stuff like that.
Nice.
To try and spark a conversation around it and yeah, bring people that were interested in science together. And I wanted to automate this account. And so we were both struggling with the Instagram API, trying to get it working and get something that was working without being banned, getting banned. And Pierre had the same struggle. So we kind of met and we were building together. Um, and that's how like we became good friends. And I found his adventures later on, uh, maybe a couple months after he launched. I worked a bit with him as a freelancer, and then yeah, we decided to like get together and start building.
Nice. So that's people meeting people with the same problems. Here you have the problem part, right? Because
Yeah,
problem should always be the first um, seed of building a company, right? Is there a problem that needs to be solved? But coming together and sharing problems and working on them together is also a very big is a very big component on building a company and building a solution here, right? So you have the problem and then you're building the solution that is fitting the problem or that is solving the problem. And yeah, yeah, we talked a little bit just very briefly before this podcast about the ecosystem in Paris and robotics and democratizing robotics. So maybe we can now jump on where we are today and what you guys are doing and what you guys are planning to do.
yeah, absolutely. So I guess in the past couple of years, you've had this massive development in AI. ChatGPT, of course, is the greatest example. I think it's one of the fastest um, apps to reach 1 million users. And it's kind of a revolution when you think about it of how it works. It's just like a network that outputs text and has solved this problem. But then you have similar algorithms in vision, in voice generation, and all these amazing examples of a revolution that's happening because of ML, because of AI. And so all these algorithms have been working on software and data, but we're seeing a transition where they want to apply it to the real world with robots. Um, the thing is, in the field of robotics, as we mentioned before, hardware is hard. You can't just order a ready-made robot and start coding on it. Um, and you need to have AI engineers, ML engineers who are able to get into robotics and build their models easily. That's the problem we face, and that's what we want to solve. So we've been in the past couple months starting to ship like a robotics dev kit for people like who are in the software part, for them to easily get into the hardware and start coding and building AI models straight to the robots. And so bringing all these people and these talented developers to the robotics field.
We talked about this earlier, or I think I mentioned this, coming from manufacturing where robots are huge and expensive and very
Yeah,
hard to program. It's definitely, as you said, um, such a big barrier, threshold that needs to be overcome for people to actually give it a try. So there's a lot of talent that is not able to express themselves in building the ideas they wanted because the access is too hard. It's too expensive. It's too hard to build. It's too hard to get into. You do need to have a lot of knowledge to make things work, and so what you guys are doing is really being a facilitator and an accelerator to
yeah,
bring robotics to the people, so to speak.
yeah. When we started out into robotics, we discovered a lot of different things, but it took us a very long time to even get the robot to move. Like the first aha moment, I guess, is, oh, my robot is moving. The
Hmm.
second aha moment is, oh, my robot is moving where I want it to go. And then the third aha moment is when you get a model working and the robot moves on its own. And that's what we want to share. We want to make all these people realize that there's something here to do, and it's accessible if you know how to get started and where to look. So this is the robot we kind of use. It's a very famous model on the internet. It's called an SO100. It was originally built by Rob Knight, so big shout out to him. And it's all 3D printed. The motors come from China. Uh, but then what we do is we write the software that makes it work. And we've taken an approach where we think the AI and ML engineers um, are quite at ease with the notion of API and stuff like that. So this is the route we're taking, and we're exposing this very basic API that's quite easy to understand that allows you to move your robot. And so, yeah, kind of writing software to bridge the gap between hardware and software.
So as you said, people who are familiar with software, who are already have a little bit of experience with that. So it's not a starter kit. It's someone who is already invested in the software side, but would like to enter the hardware side because that gives you uh, more independence, right? Because normally you do need some mechanical engineers, and then you do need. So there's a bunch of people that needs to be involved in making robots work. And here you guys say, look, this is actually a dev kit that you can order at home, and then you can start building things, right?
Yeah, we want it to be as easy as possible, plug and play, and you're ready to go. Um, and yeah,
From a business point of view, because I'm talking to a lot of startup founders, and there's a lot of people that coming out of universities are building tech and are fascinated by the technology and these accelerator entrepreneur programs, spin-off programs. They're trying to do good. I mean, a lot of them doing a very good job in educating these kind of deep tech founders in what is necessary to actually build a company, right? Because tech is tech, and you can stay in an R&D lab, especially people who are did a PhD, they've been in the academia world for quite a bit, right? And then entering that jungle out there where you do need to find customers, where do you need to do marketing and sales, where do you need, because this is a place I'm more familiar with. And how is that for you? Is that something that is, because the question would be, who is your target group and what is your addressable market and these kind of things? Is there something that you can share or if you're comfortable with?
yeah, slightly. So the way we started out is we want to have a group of beta testers of people who can give us the maximum feedback. And this is what it's aimed at. People who already know some hardware, who are good at software, and we're shipping them these kits. We're putting it on hold for now to try and get some. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy. But we've shipped already quite a couple of them. And so we're iterating on the second version of the product. It's
Mm.
going to be released in like next couple of weeks. But this time with two arms to go even deeper, like fold laundry, interact with the arms, pass stuff, collect whatever. Um, and so yeah, I mean, we know people are interested. The demos work great on online, which has been most of like our marketing strategies and getting clients. Um, demos, because it's very visual, like especially the neon green. Um, and yeah, target group, I guess it's people who want to get into robotics, and we only see this growing. I guess in the past, in the following year or couple months, I think it's just going to grow exponentially.
Mm. And is there something, especially is the components? If you would go, for example, in a commercial way and in manufacturing, right? The requirements are much harder. The requirements are there's much more requirements than being in the home. Do you think that these 3D printing now, the way the AI models are accessible, because there are a lot of these are open sourced, do you think that this is the unique and the perfect time to get into robotics and really being able to use all those different kind of things that are accessible and do your own thing and do your own stuff? Is
I think it's a good time to get into robotics, because we see it's not yet solved. It's still very hard to do robots, but we see a lot of things accelerating. Um, I think it was Rémi Cadin, from Le Robot and Hanging Face, who said, "I don't see any technological blocker in the next 5 years for robotics." Um, because of course, like hardware is hardware. We're going to have to source the motors, make them better, make the components, the joints better, stronger. But on the software side and how we command robots, it's just a matter of scale and getting the right format and the right structure. So it's going to take time, but yeah, I think we're going to see a widespread robots in the next years.
you were mentioning the videos that you see online, especially in if you're in that niche and if you're interested in these kind of things. With software, we have seen some examples out there where people were building with very small team. Now companies that have very good trajectory, right, and good numbers coming in. But do you think this will be able very soon with some people in the robotics field? Because we see these huge players with huge numbers raising money. Doesn't need to name any names now, but especially in the humanoid sector. And do you think this is something that because folding clothes is interesting. And I had Usman a few weeks ago on my podcast who builds now 7X, and I saw a few videos of him folding t-shirts as well. I think the Alexander Koch videos are quite famous as well, folding some shirts. But do you think there will be some use cases or some smaller teams that can make something out of it, and not only like getting like from an educational point of view, but like from a business point of view?
Um, Lots of things to unpack in your question. Uh,
Sorry.
so your question is, are we going to be able to see smaller teams rise in the ecosystem, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if robotics goes widespread and we see great advancements, I think smaller teams are going to have a part to play, of course. When you look at the demos, for example, of folding laundry, I think it resonates a lot with people because it's like evolution. We used to do it by hand, and then we created machines for it, and now we have robots doing it. And I think there's yeah, in all these demos, a lot of room for creativity and to explain to people what's possible with this new technology. Is it going to come from smaller teams? I don't know. Of course, when you've raised several hundred millions, it's easier to get stuff done. Um, but yeah, I don't see why not. Um, I think it's just a matter of can you find the right application, the right format for it to uh, be understandable by people and for it to make sense to them.
The question that I was discussing was how big is the addressable market for someone who would like to build something like this to fold t-shirts, right? And then we were discussing what if it's in a kitchen, right? And then you can actually have your own chef. You feed him from uh, some recipes of the internet and then some open source models maybe, how to do dishwashing and how to scramble an egg and all those kind of things. But I think we were talking about the cost, and he said he would like to bring it down to like 13 14K, and that includes the arms, cameras, all the electronics, but also a computer that is like strong enough to do this. And then my question was, so where's the use case? Because I don't know, nobody. I mean, maybe in a higher price range, that you can afford this, but having someone who is really doing something, which is not only a vacuum cleaner, which is maybe affordable for a K. So is that something that you guys playing around with, that you guys are thinking about, or is that something that
Humanoids?
no, not necessarily humanoids?
Yeah, but like in-house robotics. I don't really see a future for small robots like these to be in-house. Um, we've seen it in the AI field where the best models are the generalist models, the ones that learn everything, that do everything. And I don't see specialized robots doing one task or maybe two. What I see is those humanoid robots learning very generalist skills, pick and place, order, clean, make coffee, cut, whatever,
Hmm.
prepare. And I think this is what we're going for. Um, like wide, very, very wide robots that are capable of many tasks and that automate a lot of in-house processes. Um, I think the future for these smaller robots is, of course, getting people into robotics. If you have robots that are widespread, say in the next 15 years, you have a robot in your house, you want to learn how it works. You want to see, yeah, you want to learn more about robots, about humanoids, about how you move your hands, how you move the motors. I think this is where people are going to go to these smaller robots for the learning experience to translate it to bigger robots. Because in theory, whatever you do on this very small robot works for Agilex Pipers or bigger robots, ones that have the same number of actuators per that are 10 times bigger. It should work the same.
Is that something that you're exploring, or is that something that you're neglecting because you're focusing right now on what you have here in your hand?
Bigger robots?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely exploring. But we're leaving the humanoids for later. Too much resources needed. As you mentioned, I think, yeah, minimum price is like 80K, I think. It's just, yeah, not viable right now.
Yeah.
But hardware is getting cheaper, and yeah, it's definitely something we have in mind.
I mean, would be interesting to see, especially a lot of these things. This is plastic, right? What I see here
Yeah,
with the
this
yeah.
is 3D printed, very cheap.
But in the future, I think because 3D printing is also doing some advantages, right? So there will be the possibility maybe in the not too far future where you get a 3D printer at home where you'll be able to print out some metal, some
Yeah,
other forms of that is maybe a little bit more durable and can lift. And especially as you said, the component part, when things get cheaper, that means also more accessibility. And if you here be able to lift more weight, more payload, then it's also there's more use cases, right? So with each thing advancing, you are expanding the field that you can go into.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I guess cost is the main problem right now for it to be really widespread. But then if the costs get really low, then people can start exploring and building stuff with it. And then when people build stuff, we're going to see use cases emerge. And yeah, I don't see why people wouldn't buy them.
So what is the cost of the hand that I'm seeing at the moment here, or the
So
arm?
in terms of pure costs of like 3D plastic and the motors, we're about 130 USD, I think. And then you need some way to control it. So if you want to build a leader arm, so a replication of this robot, but that will copy the movements of the robot, that will double the cost, so 260. But then you can also like use software to calculate the cinematics and the positions, and you can make it work on your own. But so yeah, we sell a dev kit that comprises the robot, a Raspberry Pi with software that runs to control everything, and cameras for you to be able to like get into computer vision and build stuff.
How much is that?
We sell it for 480 euros with the software.
Nice. So this is like really accessible, especially if you think about how much costs a new telephone, a new mobile phone. This is like a third of it. So
Yeah,
it's and you have your robot at home and you can start doing things, right?
yeah, absolutely. We want to make it as cheap as possible and as easy to get started with. Um, yeah, and we're working on the second version, which will have two arms. Should be amazing.
You were saying that you put it on a pause button, and actually that you, I was a little bit confused, but then you explained yourself, and I think it does make very much sense because the putting everything on pause and verifying assumptions and getting feedback from testers, right, and including their feedback and making the product much better, even though that means holding some things on hold or keeping some things on hold. I think it's the best thing to do it. I think this is what I think a lot of founders neglecting that you not can only work on the product to make it better, better, better without getting like really like a ton of feedback and really valuable feedback and including that.
Yeah, that's the main thing. What we've seen is people actually buy two of them because they want to have the dual setup because they've seen the videos and they want to
Mm.
reproduce it. And yeah, the main idea was for us to validate the hypothesis, right? We're going to sell out to X number of people. Oh, X number of people bought it. Okay, deal is done. Let's see how we can improve it and work on the second version. Better, stronger, faster, whatever. Um, yeah, it's a big thing.
Sorry.
No, I was about to say, I think when you build a company, you really have to focus on validating your hypothesis. Always talk to customers. They're the ones buying, so you have to make them happy. Um, because you can spend months building something that nobody wants. It's yeah, build something people want.
I think very wise. There's a good lesson. Whoever is building a company and whoever is listening. How big is the team? Can you say something with this?
Yeah, yeah, I can. So it's very small. We are four people full time, two interns and someone who like is coming here and now to work on the hardware.
Mhm.
So very small, but yeah.
The thing that you said about getting feedback from paying customers first, it is especially valid even though some people are aiming to get a bit of the hype that is around AI and robotics. And when it comes to raising money, you were mentioning this earlier in the podcast that European VCs are still very conservative about this, but everyone would like to put their money on the next horse that is winning big, right? And some founders can find themselves in a situation where raising money seems more of a goal than serving customers. How is that for you guys?
Yeah, no, no, no. So we've raised money already, and we have enough runway for the next. Yeah, we're good. So now, yeah, let's not talk about numbers. But yeah, now it's about making something people want. How do we make the best product and make sure that people are happy with it and can use it to get started and build it?
And is part of the, and here again, say as much as you like, and is part of the strategy getting in contact with universities? Because there's a lot of labs out there, right, that I can imagine reaching out to you guys.
Yeah, we haven't specifically talked to universities yet, but we've had some people in universities buy it. There's actually some fun use cases. So one of the teachers bought it for his class. But then you have some people who want to put these robots on wheelchairs for disabled people to work with the real world. So a disabled person could say, okay, open the door for me, grab this can, move this, and the idea is that the robot would do these things for the person, which I think is really cool. Um, and yeah, lots of very fun use cases, um, because at the end of the day, the robot lets your software talk with the physical world, which enables a lot of different things.
I'm really curious to see the next version of it. I think, as you said, there are a lot of people are really keen on getting their hands on these kind of robots as well. And as you don't need to build everything from scratch, right? There's so many out there, and the community is very active in sharing, and there's a lot of open source topics happening. How much are you guys in see yourself, because you were mentioning the guys from Le Robot, in competition to you guys? Is that an addition? Is that
It's an addition. Like we want to work with them. We love what they do, and they've helped us get into the field. So no, I think we're not a lot of French founders into robotics, so let's help
mm,
each other out. Yeah, we've had some events with them, and yeah, I mean the more people around, the better. So no, we absolutely need to work with them and make it compatible. So that's part of the idea. All the data you collect on this robot is directly usable with Le Robot. And they've done some fantastic work with the different models you can train and exploit.
it's really cool to see this, and I really like the idea of making it more accessible. I remember that in manufacturing, where you need to call someone who is able to program a robot, right, from a specific company, and then he arrives and you need to pay him like 1 or 2K per day, so he can make some adjustments. And a lot of startups are getting into that niche where UI and UX become more accessible as well, right? So there's the programming part, but then there's the operator not necessarily is a programmer, right? But now we are talking really industrial applications. But if we can derive to people in their homes, not everyone is that fluent in those things. And you were mentioning LLMs, so we are kind of getting used to the ChatGPT thing where you just talk to a machine, and now getting into a field where you don't need to be able to program anymore. I mean, it's still very valuable, right? And we are not there yet, but seeing tendencies that this will also become more accessible, and that you talk to the robot and the robot can execute.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one very important thing is that with the rise of LLMs, the software is getting easier and easier and easier. And our take is, where are people going to go? Hardware, robots.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm very curious to see how this works out for you guys, and especially what comes next. Not only from going from one arm to two arms, but and being more on the educational side, if I'm allowed to say this. But maybe seeing and deriving other and exploring, as you said, there's an AI company because there's so many different kind of components. Robotics is one of them. I'm really curious to see if, let's say, if we talk in 1 or 2 or 3 years, where the company is going towards to, and if there will be a more industrial, commercial, um, like path you guys are going towards to.
yeah, we have different ideas. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Only time will tell.
Yeah, true. As you said, validation, getting validation of the ideas you're playing around with. So shipping first, even though it's not 100%, and getting validation. Is there a need out there? Uh, is there some people willing to pay for that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm very happy that you said yes, and I might be in Paris for the next 2 weeks, and let's see if there would be a coffee time chat for me involved somehow. And thanks for bringing the hand with you. I think the green color is awesome. I'm really keen to see what the community is able to do with these kind of things. So I'm keeping my eyes open.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's been great talking to you. And if you're in Paris, you have to come to the office. We'll show you all the cool things we're working on.
Nice.
I'm happy that you like it. And yeah, I'll send you maybe some demo videos or stuff to showcase.
Do you have merch? Because merch seems to be very important. I'm still looking for a sticker that I can add to my collection of stickers on my laptop.
I'll give you a sticker.
Okay. Thanks, Frédéric, for taking the time and looking forward to talk to you.
Dankeschön.
Mhm.
Tschüss.
Bye bye.